between 40 and 70% of caregivers report clinically significant depressive symptoms at some point during the caregiving process. When you're sitting in front of the doctor and you're there for your loved one, oftentimes the caregiver is just secondary thought. It's like, how are you doing? I'm fine, but they're really not fine.
Welcome to In Good Company, elder care in your backyard.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of In Good Company. Today we have a special episode today. We're going to be talking about all things 2026. So this is kind of the direction of the podcast. Before I get started, I want to recognize Spencer Ernst and Alex Wallace, my co-hosts today. They're going to be helping me go through a list of all the areas that we want to cover in 2026. There's a lot. It's going to be more comprehensive than what we're covering today. But when we had a conversation recently, we talked about, when you're on a plane and they're talking about safety and the oxygen mask drop, they always say, put your own oxygen mask on first.
That's right.
And as a caregiver, what we're finding, all the research out there is pointing to this, is that being a caregiver is not necessarily good for your health. And I don't want to, when I say caregiver, I mean somebody who's got somebody in their home 24/7, and they're trying to take care of them and navigate all the things that come up with taking care of an elderly parent. Now, they don't necessarily have to live with you to kind of still fit in this category. They could live on their own and you're still scrambling to try to take care of them. But oftentimes we find that the caregivers end up neglecting their own health. And so today we want to talk about all things that potentially influence that. And we're going to do a break-off, deep dive into many of these topics as we go through 2026. So it's a little bit of a precursor to what 2026 is going to look like, but I think you're going to get some nuggets out of today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us, thumbs up, a 5-star review on your platform of choice. And if you know someone who might be struggling right now with trying to take care of a loved one, please send this podcast to them. I think they're going to find that through this year, not only will it give them tips and tricks, some of the stuff we've already come out with is going to really help them. But the stuff we're coming out this year is going to be phenomenal. A lot of wellness, a lot of navigating traditional medicine, alternative medicine, technology, wearables, travel, healthcare, the whole 9 yards. We want to try to help people navigate that. We're not selling anything here. And so, that's the pitfall sometimes of going to some other podcasts or influencers, is oftentimes they may have something they're trying to sell. We're not trying to sell anything. We're really just trying to navigate through some of this messiness. Some of this I'm navigating myself. I'm 55 years old, and I want to be physically fit. I want to avoid some of the pitfalls of the patients that I've seen over the last 30 years. And I want to try to warn people about if they just do a few things, it can make a huge impact on the future of their elderliness. So let's break in. Where should we start?
Aging better. I think that's the key term, aging better.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Age better.
That is the key question. I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into aging better. I think when it comes to wellness, exercise, eating well, just the lifestyle that society's put us in, especially when it comes to caregiving and even raising kids. We live in such a fast-paced world. Sometimes we just forget to take care of ourselves in the process of doing that because we only have so many hours on the day. So it's like, all right, what can I do quickly? What can I shorten my time doing something? So say I want to go grab fast food instead of cooking in the house because it's convenient. What are those effects going to do for me? Or, hey, I would love to work out daily and, I have to take care of my kids, my elderly parent that I'm also taking care of on top of working 40 hours a week, on top of my commute that I have to do every day. So there's a lot of things we don't think about that wear us down throughout the day. So it's going to be interesting to think about all the different topics that we can really dive into and how can you maximize your time throughout the day to make sure that you're living a healthy life.
Absolutely. It's mentally hard and physically demanding.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's appreciated in our society. A lot of times, somebody's taking care of an older adult, and it seems like parents, young parents, get all the good press. It's hard to be a parent these days. It's hard to take care of little kids, and I totally agree with that. But the glamour of being a parent versus the glamour of being caregiver for an older parent is just different. And I feel like society may support the parenting side of things just a little bit better. And that's why we want to kind of jump in. One of the statistics that I happened to run across, it said caregivers have a 23% higher risk of mortality compared to non-caregivers of the same age, largely due to chronic illness.
Makes sense because they don't have time to go take care of themselves.
Well, it goes back to what you said, John, about the oxygen mask on the airplane. You got to put yourself first before you can help somebody else, because if you neglect yourself, the whole system can fail.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So that statistic, it's surprising, but it does make sense.
Have you seen, like, in your own families, any situations?
Yeah, my grandmother, when she was taking care of my grandfather, when his dementia started getting really bad. I mean, she wasn't in the best of health anyways, but like the toll that it took to take care of him it weighed heavily. I think it really honestly led to her dying earlier as well, because like just the toll of having to take care of him all the time. And like she had cancer about 20 years before that. So like the cancer had, taken its toll on her body. And then like on top of that, she aged like everybody else ages. So sure, I'm going to take care of him. And then him forgetting stuff at times. And it was like, all right, trying to take care of that. And eventually she had to put him in a home.
Right.
And that took a mental toll on her, as well as like, I'm not taking care of him every day. Do I, not actually fulfill my duties as a wife because I had to put them. And so, I mean, like, I think there's a lot of mental health that goes with caregiving as well. It's like, I have the stress of taking care of them, or, am I neglecting them by putting them somewhere else and not doing it myself? So like the doubt of, am I doing the right thing for my spouse? So I don't know. There's a lot that goes into caregiving in general that I don't think people really talk about until they live it. And then they don't know the outlet to go to or who to talk to about it, because not everyone goes through those scenarios at the same time either.
Yeah, it's important. I think everyone understand that it does hit people from left field. They don't. There's you don't know what you don't know until you're living it yourself. And I think that's why this particular topics that we're going to go over today are so important, because if people don't start recognizing this in themselves and anticipating them, or even seeing that it's actively going on, that they're burning the candle at both ends, and they need to stop. They need to stop and take account and really look at what habits they've picked up, what things they're doing or not doing that need addressed in order to make sure that they still have a quality of life after they're done being a caregiver. So much of burnout, I think, is part of this, because they really do mentally run through the gamut. And some of the things that science has kind of pointed out around caregiving is that it does raise stress levels, which you can get chronic stress hormones. High cortisol levels have really shown to have an ill effect on your gut, your mental health, your sleep, so many things that play into your overall health. And so just being able to identify that you are under stress is kind of the first step. And then you can start working on ways, which we're going to talk about today, to try to mitigate that. But if caregiving were a disease, it would already qualify as a risk factor for heart disease, depression, and immune dysfunction. And so that's what they're finding in caregivers these days, full-time caregivers, that they get under so much stress that they're more susceptible to those chronic diseases than other people. It's crazy.
That is crazy. Well, speaking of personal experience, my mom became a caregiver in a sense for her father. So when my grandma passed, he could not take care of himself. And there was a family discussion of putting him in a home, putting him in a nursing facility. And my mom refused to do that because he didn't want it. And I can just remember that she would stay over at his house all the time, almost 24/7. She was not sleeping. She was not eating. Her health was down. I mean, it was a night and day difference seeing my mom going before taking that role on and then after. And he survived for about another 6 months. So basically, she was kind of in a hospice type role, but I think she regrets it. I think she should have gotten the medical care professionally that was required, because it really took a toll on her health, and it affected our family. A lot of stress with the family over that.
Yeah, and many caregivers, they slowly kind of stop being themselves. They become the role of the caregiver, and that identity loss can affect motivation, joy, longevity. And, one of the things that's important for people to remember is that, you're allowed to be more than just useful. Like, you have to take care of yourself first, and finding meaning in life for yourself, and taking care of yourself and protecting yourself is not being selfish. It really is. You can't be a good caregiver. You can't take care of somebody if you don't take care of yourself first. One of the big factors that kind of comes up is persistent rest. And sleep disruption is a huge factor. And this, I guess our core audience is really folks that are kind of in the 40s to 70s range. 70s probably on the high end, but still I've met 70-year-olds that were taking care of parents, and sleep dysfunction, and a lot of people think, well, that's just normal part of aging. And it is to a slight degree, but not nearly as much as people give it credit. And being able to monitor your own sleep and be able to check if you have sleep dysfunction and that sort of thing is really, really important early on. And sometimes people don't know it in themselves. They just know they're tired and they think, oh, it's just because I'm stressed, or I'm, having to work so hard to get up all the time. And sometimes their sleep's disrupted. Some people have to sleep with one eye open, and that sort of thing. And so identifying sleep dysfunction is super, super important. One of the things I've done personally is I got an Oura Ring, which is just a wearable. It's a health monitor. And so they have all kinds of health monitors on the market now. They can have watches and different things like that. But what it does is it tells me how much I sleep at night. And it's really fascinating how much things tie together when it comes to sleep, and how well I perform or don't perform, even just off a few hours of missed sleep. And that's one of the big challenges I have for this year, is to try to
Get a little bit more.
Yeah. Yes,
that's the hardest thing.
It really is, and so much plays a role. Like I've found out that what you eat before you go to bed can make a huge difference. The timing of what you eat, can play a big role. Do you wind down before you go to bed at night?
Unplug for at least 1 hour.
Yes.
It's so hard to do. My wife, she's always like scrolling, okay, time for bed. And I'm just like, I got to unplug for at least an hour before I can actually, rest the eyes.
Oh, I understand that struggle. We do the same thing. We'll turn off the TV an hour before bed. Then we end up scrolling for 45 minutes. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, just go to bed. Like, quit staying up so late. And especially with a 2-year-old, waking up in the middle of the night, it's like we're not getting the quality sleep we need.
Absolutely.
And yet we're refusing to go to bed early.
I don't know how people do it. Another thing I want to throw out there is get a sleep study. My wife got one. She has sleep apnea. We had no idea. This was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
She was just flabbergasted. I'm like, and now she sleeps perfectly. Like she full night, not waking up, not tossing and turning.
Did they just prescribe a CPAP?
Yeah. That's what they did. They did a sleep study at Cox Health. And so she did the whole sleeping thing during the day. And they said, yeah, you're waking up like 10 times an hour. That's a problem. Yeah. Dead serious. And she has a report. I'm like, oh my God.
How old was she when they diagnosed her?
She'd been 24.
Are you serious?
Man.
Had no idea.
Wow.
Had no idea.
I actually met a guy in college who was about that age that was diagnosed. And I thought it was a super rare thing, but I guess it's not.
It's just.
I had a friend who was in his 40s that got a sleep study. Woke up over 100 times an hour. Because we always. So he was in my fraternity, and we'd go and do a retreat every year.
Yeah.
We'd sleep in the same bunk room, and he just constantly hear him up and down, and you're like,
my God.
Something's not right here. And it's like, you should not be waking up that many or stop breathing that many times per hour. Like, it's just
and how she figured it out, Not for me just saying, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? But Apple Watch, kind of like your aura, like it kept telling her, I just keep waking up. And then she set up an appointment and met with the doctor and like, let's do a sleep study. And that's when they solved it. So the technology these days help tremendously to at least get you on the right track.
Yeah. I had a sleep study because I had similar problems. I couldn't sleep through the night fully. So I have what some might call terminal insomnia. So I can go to sleep easy. My head hits the pillow, I'm out. If I'm not scrolling. But then I'll wake up 3, 4 in the morning sometimes and just wide awake, like ready to jump out of bed. And it's just like, I'm not getting out of bed this early. And so I've actually kind of run the gauntlet to try to figure out like, what are all the things? And so there are a number of factors for me. So I found that if I eat too late, if my blood sugar spikes too high, by the way, I have a glucose monitor as well. I've been trying different technologies to try to see, like what does this impact? And that's one thing I'd really like to get into in more depth on another show.
Sure. Yeah.
But if my glucose spikes too close to bedtime, if I don't really wind down, and so just trying to do some relaxation, trying to do some breathing and get myself in good headspace. So, a lot of people think, well, stress will affect you being able to go to sleep. But for some, you can still go to sleep. But what it'll do is it'll trigger this rebound of cortisol at night, and it'll skyrocket in the night. And so your stress level through the day and your stress level right before bed does make a big impact on whether or not you can get a couple of extra hours of sleep, or even wake up and keep yourself calm and then put yourself back to sleep. Because that happens actually almost every night. I'll wake up at
3 a.m.
3 a.m.
3-ish.
3 a.m.
I always hear it as the dreaded 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's pretty common. But then trying to work on getting back to sleep is sometimes a trick, and it's different for different people. I think some people have to literally get up and read a boring book or something that's not, too mind activating. For me, I can lay there, and if I go through, I use an app called Headspace, and it just kind of does like some meditation stuff, and I'll listen to that as long as it's not too loud or whatever. I'll run that for a little while, and it does get me tired again, and then I'll be able to sleep some more. So that has taken me decades to try to figure out. I mean, I was waking up at 3 a.m. in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just my, cadence. And I'd get up. Sometimes I get up at 3 a.m. and go run. I used to run like 6 miles a day or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I just get up at 3 a.m. and it's like no traffic, and
great time to go.
Clear my head or whatever, and then I just jump in the car and go to work. So it worked really early in the morning. And so just those few things really did make an impact for me. Another statistic that's kind of interesting is that it says that over 60% of caregivers report having at least one chronic medical condition themselves. That's a lot. And that on top of having to take care of somebody else and having a chronic illness of some sort, which a lot of chronic illnesses have a cascading effect. They end up causing other problems as they progress and go untreated and unaddressed. And so at a time when most people should be concentrating even more on prevention and taking care of themselves, they end up being forced in a situation where they can take care of themselves less. Oftentimes you'll see a primary physician at your annual, but otherwise you have to have a reason to go see them. And, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, a doctor could miss if they don't ask about sleep or stress or strength. And, quote unquote, normal labs, oftentimes labs are kind of designed to pick up if there's a serious illness going on, and maybe not as much tweaking if there's nutritional challenges there, like they've got some sort of vitamin deficiency. Most labs aren't going to pick up on a lot of those. And so that's where prevention starts to kind of play a bigger role for these folks, is where do they go to start to kind of look at the details a little bit. And, the hard part is that, there's traditional medicine, which may focus more on what some people would say sick health. They're looking for somebody who's really well into an issue. And then you have maybe more of the functional health or alternative medicine that might be looking at trying to look at nutritional things and that sort of thing. But the problem is that sometimes down that rabbit hole, they can put you on a lot of things. And you're pretty soon you're taking, mounds and mounds of supplements. Yeah. I've done this personally, so I've gone down this road, and you can end up destroying your stomach and everything else in the process. You just have to be
too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing. And so that's why navigating this can be really challenging, and finding that right clinician who's gonna say, let's treat this with food rather than a supplement. Let's not sell you a supplement. Let's just tell you exactly nutritionally what you need to do. Sometimes there's absorption issues. A lot of times people don't realize, how important gut health is. Mm-hmm. And how that affects the mind and sleeping and all of these things. And there's so much information out there that it's hard to weed through. A big thing right now is probiotics. And there's a lot of studies out there that really don't find probiotics as being that impactful. But a lot of people swear by them. And I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm just saying that there's a bit of controversy about some of these things.
And I've been hearing a lot of people are being diagnosed as pre-diabetic and also being put on these GLP drugs to also help with the insulin and keep their insulin levels down.
Yeah.
So it's like it's working a double purpose. But at what point do you just say, okay, you're no longer pre-diabetic, and then take them off of that? Do they go back up to those pre-diabetic levels when we take them off the medication?
Yeah.
Like, I have a lot of questions about that because, like, as we know, like, if you don't take care of yourself in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like, your heart health, your liver health are going to be just shot.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people, we have a weight issue here in America. It's not a secret. Like fatty liver disease and like congestive heart failure, I feel like are going to be a big problem for us as a society because of the lifestyles we live. We're sedentary in our jobs. We're sedentary at home. We watch too much TV. We eat too much fast food. So it's like, how do we counterbalance that and make sure that we're eating correctly? We're maintaining our insulin levels, not becoming insulin resistant through the foods we're eating. Mm-hmm. And also, finding the right people to teach us how to exercise properly and develop those proper, routines. Like, in college, a lot of us develop great routines because we have the free time to do it.
Yeah.
And then we get out in the real world and start working jobs, have kids, have a family, have to take care of our family. Like, we lose track of all that. We're like, oh, I no longer have that routine. Where do I squeeze it into my day too? So,
yeah. I struggle with this too so much. I'm a snacker big time. And, one of the things that has kind of helped me is, on the app with the Aura Ring, there's a lot of different things that it covers. But one of the things it wants you to do, especially since I'm tracking my insulin levels, is your meals. And so you go to the app, and anytime you're going to eat a meal, you can click add a meal, and you can take a picture of your food. It'll analyze it. And
that's pretty wild.
And it'll give you, it kind of gives you a rating, fair, good, great, that sort of thing. But when you get the timing just right, you can see how your blood sugar responds to what you ate.
Okay.
And so there's something psychological though about, because if you have your phone on you all the time and you try to get really disciplined about putting those food items in your phone, it makes you pause.
Just rethink it.
Yeah, it's like, am I really hungry? There's a saying in Japanese culture, and the actual Japanese words I'm not going to try to recreate, but it's basically 80% full. And so it takes about 20 minutes for your system to recognize whether you're full, even like after you actually are full, like satisfied. And so oftentimes I do this, I'll overeat because I'm not getting that signal that I'm full. And I feel obligated to finish everything on my plate. I was raised like that, and don't waste. And so if you're not careful about portion control right out of the gate, you're going to wind up overeating. And so what they recommend, or I guess in the society, Japanese culture, what they recommend is you eat a little bit and you put your fork down and you just wait and you slow eat. One of the things that as a physical therapist, I learned early on is that muscle is an investment. So the earlier you invest in building muscle, the better it will serve you as you get older. And there's all kinds of great longevity studies that have been done over in Europe and Scandinavia, especially, where they look at 80 and 90-year-olds and they look at longevity studies of people who, exercise most of their life and weightlifting specifically in their lives, and their bone density, their muscle density, their frailty is significantly less. Their fall risk is significantly less. There's all kinds of studies on chronic pain and people who have had chronic back problems their entire life, and they started a strong exercise program, even weightlifting, and it significantly improved their low back pain. This non-surgical people, I can look at somebody who's in their 60s and 70s, and I can tell their muscle tone just by the way they walk. It's not difficult to see at all. They show differently. And some people are like, well, you're going to wear your joints out faster or something. That's not how it works. It really isn't. It's just not how it works. If somebody's doing massive powerlifting or something every day, okay, maybe you can make that argument. But for most people, if you exercise weight training every day, you're actually probably improving your joint health more than most, in my opinion, most joint health degrades because of other chronic conditions and a lack of exercise in many ways. It's kind of a use it or lose it type of thing. So I know I'm kind of on my soapbox here about this, but I do think that is a huge factor in reducing stress. And so many chronic conditions are mitigated by exercise. Like when you look on the list of, preventative medicine for every chronic disease and exercise is on there. It's on every single one of them. It's amazing.
And there's been a big push lately for like the 10,000 steps a day and how beneficial that is for your heart, and how it's actually better than running a couple miles a day is just doing 10,000 steps a day. So
yeah, one of the things they mentioned too is walking 20 minutes after you eat reduces the glucose spike. And so if you're like somewhat satisfied after a meal and you force yourself to go jump on the treadmill or go out for a walk afterwards, the likelihood of you like getting a heavy craving for, it kind of depends on what you ate, of course. If you ate a heavy carb, highly processed food, you're probably going to get a craving anyway. But that's a great way to mitigate that glucose spike, which actually encourages more. And you can get that kind of you can wait for that feeling of satisfaction to kind of come on, because it comes on slowly. That's one of the things I think a lot of people don't understand about our eating habits is that if you eat, and that's why they say only go to 80% and stop, is because a lot of times you'll stop. You're like, well, I'm not done eating yet. But if you wait another 20 minutes, all of a sudden you feel satisfied, because that's how long it takes for your system to recognize and get the right hormones in place and say, okay, yeah, food's coming, we're good. You can slow down a little bit as long as it's not part of some sort of mental thing, because that's obviously separate. That's just purely biological. Another thing that I went kind of down the road of is I did function health. And that there's so many other things out there, and I'm not plugging them at all necessarily, because it can be kind of pricey to do some of these external labs. But just so you know, there is a lot of options out there for getting your own labs done that look at look at nutrition health. And so one of the things that I had no idea, but it does impact a lot of things, was I had a D3 deficiency and had no idea, never knew, that was a thing even. And so I just started taking a little D3 supplement and felt tons better, it's just one of those things where I would have never known that because it's not on a regular panel. Like when you get your labs done at the doctor, they're not looking in that much detail. And so sometimes it's in your best interest to kind of look outside the normal healthcare system to kind of just say, maybe I should look into some things just to see what the labs say,
And what you're lacking in your diet.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Yeah. I also did, they have a, it's a CT scan of your heart and it looks for calcium deposits. And sometimes that can be an indicator for, they don't recommend it, more than I think once 6 years or a decade or something like that. But you kind of have to ask for it. Like if you have some concerns and you want to just kind of get that looked at. And yeah, I had a few calcium deposits, nothing major. It's kind of, on the low end for my age, but I got a family history of it. So I got to look out. And that's another thing that you can do to kind of keep an eye on things. It says here that between 40 and 70% of caregivers report clinically significant depressive symptoms at some point during the caregiving process. So, it is very much a problem. And, when you're sitting in front of the doctor and you're there for your loved one, oftentimes the caregiver is just secondary thought. It's like, how are you doing? I'm fine, but they're really not fine. And oftentimes people who have depression, they won't help themselves. They're kind of out of reach of that because they feel defeated a bit and maybe a little guilty to even say anything. It is very much a major problem. And so many chronic health conditions lead to depression. Oftentimes people think of depression as its own thing. And it is caused by mental issues, but oftentimes depression can be led from a chronic condition that's progressing as well.
It makes sense.
So sometimes it gets hidden under, irritability, feeling tired all the time. And they just think it's because I haven't slept or whatever. And that lack of sleep actually may be a symptom of depression. Oh, this is interesting. It says that 80% of chronic disease risk develops before symptoms appear. Whoa. So oftentimes they can pick up on some of those chronic illnesses prior to the symptoms. Yeah. And you're so distracted by taking care of your loved one that I think it'd be easy to miss some of those little signs. And you're like, is something wrong? Wait, I got to go take care of this person. And you're moving on to the next thing. I think a good first step for some people would be to try to figure out, a way to monitor themselves just a little bit more. I'm not saying that a wearable is the answer, but it is the answer for me. And, having something that kind of is kind of reminding you that you're supposed to be living a little bit healthier life. You need better sleep. And that's the thing about this particular, they have lots of apps and lots of wearables out there, but it's on you all the time. You need to sleep better. You need to, it's before bed. You need to start winding down.
Sometimes you need that, though. It's like that coach, a virtual coach with you.
Absolutely. You spiked your blood sugar again. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. But it's like a health coach and it's a great starting point for some people. Actually, my son's birthday is coming up here soon. I went ahead and got him one because I'm just, he's been, wanting to, live a little bit healthier lifestyle. And I think it's sometimes a good way to just kind of kick the ball rolling. It's like, okay, start monitoring it, because what's measured is usually improved. Yeah. And I've noticed that in myself. I exercise more. I watch what I eat a little bit more. I focus on, if I don't get enough sleep, trying to take naps and that sort of thing, and trying to like, I got to get a good night's sleep tonight. So I'm going to put down my phone and just try to relax a little bit mentally. And sometimes it's like dealing with something that I'm stressed about. Like, so I start, sometimes I'll write out like, what is it I'm really stressed about, kind of deal with it. And then it's like, okay, I've done something. I feel like I can put that aside. I don't have to wake up stewing about it at 3 a.m. I've kind of dealt with that, and sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. But overall, it's been very positive trying to have something that kind of just moves the mark. The other thing is just trying to not overcomplicate the diet. Just trying to say, is that processed or is that not? I'll stay away from the processed stuff, and I'll try to eat the stuff that's not processed. And that has helped me tremendously because it just doesn't spike my blood sugar as much. And then I sleep better and all kinds of other things that comes from it.
And I think another cool thing about a lot of the wearable technology, they're covered by flexible savings accounts as well as healthy savings accounts.
Yeah.
So you can use any of those accounts
Absolutely.
to buy Oura rings, Apple watches.
Yes.
And I mean, another cool thing UHC does is like they do every year they can give you up to $300 depending on how active you are, like just connecting your technology to their apps, going on annual visits, getting a flu shot. Like, I mean, I made like almost $150 last year for just being active and doing things through their app. So, I mean, it was great because like you can use that to buy a watch, or you can use it to just get a free gift card to spend on whatever you want later on. So it's another cool thing that like a lot of companies are starting to go towards to get people to be more active and actually monitor their health more.
Absolutely. And, a lot of the insurances will sometimes cover gym memberships, silver sneakers, and different things like that. So, and the other piece of it is that I used to tell my people this all the time, because they'd be like, well, I don't want to spend money on that. And I used to tell them, well, you're going to spend it one way or another. Like, you're going to spend it on your healthcare while you're healthy, or you're going to spend it on your healthcare when you're really, really sick. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you won't be really, really sick, but you could definitely make a huge change now and live a better quality of life. And so that money that you spend is probably worth it. And when you really sit down, if we were to sit down and put pen to paper and talk about all the things you spend your money on, probably could fit something in there that was a little healthier and eliminate some things. So I don't want to, if I don't want to not address that people who are lower income are going to have a harder struggle with this. It's just not going to be as easy because unfortunately in our society, healthier food is more expensive. It is more perishable. And so that means you got to go to the grocery store more often and buy smaller amounts of food. And it's not going to be as cost effective as buying in bulk and stuff that sits on the shelf or in the pantry for days on end. And so it's a trade-off for sure. One of the other things that, we have to call out here is when somebody becomes a caregiver, they really are oftentimes isolating themselves more and more. They can't leave, mom or dad, or they can't, they're, and the only social interaction they're getting is maybe a phone call or two with a family member, or, that clinician that they're seeing who comes into the home, or, going out to the doctor's office and that sort of thing. And, we, like, for instance, in the hospice world, we do what's called respite. So if a caregiver needs a break, we'll make sure that person, gets into. Well, sometimes we will pay for them to go into a facility for a week, something like that, and so that gives that caregiver a break or a rest. And they plug that into the hospice system. They haven't really plugged that into the rest of the healthcare system, and which I think they probably should. But, it's trying to find a way to get that break, trying to find a way to get that help so that you can, take care of yourself. And, it's hard, but social isolation is really hard. And they think, well, I'm with mom or I'm with dad, but that's different. It really is. You need to be with your peers. You need to be with people that you can, lack of a better word, have somebody to complain about, the situation you're in too. Vent to, yeah. So you can kind of unload that, and and I think that helps with burnout and that sort of thing. There's a lot of topics that we're going to dive into. We're going to get some experts on the show that, deal with sleep, deal with all the chronic conditions, the mental health aspect, that sort of thing. We're going to bring some alternative medicine folks on. We're going to bring on some traditional medicine folks. But we're really going to focus in on the caregivers this year, try to make sure that everyone's living a healthier life. And so if you're at home listening right now and you're questioning whether or not you're doing everything you can to take care of yourself, first of all, don't let that stress you out. Take a deep breath. But take a few minutes, sit down, write some things down. What are some goals that you'd like to accomplish this year? What are some things that you derived from this podcast that you think maybe you should look into, or at least acknowledge that maybe that might be an issue? And that's the starting point, because usually from there something good will come from that. You identify what the problem is and you ask the question, and the answers will come in time. So for sure.
And if anybody has any topics they want us to cover, feel free to go to ingoodcompanypodcast.com, scroll down on our webpage, and we have a little section that you can fill out, like anything you want us to talk about on the show.
Like and subscribe. It does make a difference. It reaches people who really need to hear all this. So find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And again, social media, Facebook. We're also on X. We're also on Instagram. So just check us out. I'll put it right here at the bottom of the screen.
Awesome. Stay with us. We are going to try to age better together.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And we'd love to stay connected. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram at In Good Company Elder Care Podcast.
You can also find us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at IGC Pod, and on TikTok at IGC Elder Care Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to In Good Company Elder Care in Your Backyard. I'm John Ray, and I've been joined by my amazing co-host, Spencer Ernst. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alex Wallace, for helping bring this show to life. Until next time, take care, and remember, you are always in good company.